God, this has been such a hot story. Um, and I don't have time to watch everybody's YouTube coverage of this. And I'm friendly with and have streamed with many of the people who are talking about this story right now. And there seems to be contention like that. And I feel like the internet is very quick to put people into camps right now. And what I'm seeing on in the comment section and on Twitter is like, who is on what side, who's grifting, who's defending Nick, who's defending Aaron, um you know who cares about neither side and just wants to rake in the sweet super chats. And that's why I appreciate people like you and Legal Mindset and a few others who seem to really be coming at this kind of objectively. And I did listen briefly to Viva Fry and Robert Barnes coverage of it. Like, they kind of came at it from the angle of, you could on a surface level, it almost looks like they're defending Nick, but they're coming at it from, like, I guess Barnes is like a constitutionalist, but I think that was even before this new kid element came out. So there's so much to process, and I wanted to get your take of things because I think this new supplemental report came out fairly recently. So I wanted to get your take on just kind of your thoughts through kind of every step of the way, from your first reaction to what you've seen so far, and what you make of things, as they are right now.
Well, there's a lot when we're looking at a story or a situation like this. So it is obviously more complicated when it's someone we know and have an established relationship with, and that many of us, even more than that, people talk about parasocial relationship, or it's not a real relationship, or I met Nick once, right, and I genuinely like the guy and consider him a friend, but it becomes weirder when you feel like this guy basically helped build my livelihood and gave me access to literally making, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not potentially millions of dollars a year.
Why didn't I become a lawyer? What's wrong with me? Why did
What I'm saying is, how do you, how do you, someone who does that for you and doesn't ask for anything in return, someone who gives you that kind of key, and people sell, it's like people sell that sort of like opportunity to you. Like, pay me 350, pay me 300 a month and I'll teach you how to,
Yes.
like, get this turn. He literally did that, not just for me, but for like a dozens of people. I mean, if you think about how many millions of dollars people have been able to generate,
Oh, yeah.
that never happens at all. The entire Lawtube concept. I mean, you can joke about what it is. It's not a group of people, Lawtube. It's a genre of what people do. And none of us would be doing it. And if we were doing it, none of us would have thought to do it without him. And if anyone would have thought to do it, the rapid growth that it's had never would have possibly happened. And I'm not just talking, it's definitely not just me. I mean, the growth of Nate the lawyer, the Viva Fry, it was pretty well established. Lead attorney says he would have been nothing without him. That dude is raking in millions. Legal mindset, nothing. Branca, how much money he's bringing in.
Oh, I
Emily
hate
D.
Bronco.
Baker, who's like the queen of the genre. She almost certainly would not have launched into this if not for what happens with the Rittenhouse trial. He literally
Wow.
he was recognized as the Pope because he built an opportunity for so many of us, and so many of us are fortunate enough to be capitalizing on having what really is the most amazing job in the world. And that's really far more enriching than almost any other job, and more enjoyable than any other job.
And
So
I'm sure
that
people were able to leave, like, I'm sure a few people
yeah,
left their
leave law
shitty,
firms. Yeah,
soul-sucking day
abandon
jobs.
sucky, painful type of litigation or other transactional work that so many of us hate. And none of us, like literally none of us, we could all look at what we would be right now, and it'd be a small fraction of what we are. So that's why it's like, so I don't know, how close am I to him? How many hours in my life have I spent him compared to so many other people in my life? or never, or what sort of personal things I've shared about myself with him compared to other people, he would be
Mhm.
pretty well down on the list. But I, and so many of us, like, how someone who gives you access to that literally changes your entire life. And then to feel like, okay, so I'm going to be in a position now where I'm bashing this guy. It's like, what the F is wrong with you? Like, how the hell can you possibly do that? And the only factor that to me really does it, really changes the entire equation. I don't give a damn how much this guy has done for you. The factor that changes it is kids. That's really it. Like, if like you hear that, if he has problems with drugs, which most of us readily jump to that conclusion. There's definitely, I mean, look, the guy's got 26 grams of freaking coke in his house or something. He's got, if it's not 26, he's got a pretty massive Tony Montana type of stash. It sounds like in his house. It's
Like
hard
an
to
8 ball is like 3 grams, right? And that's
right.
the most common.
He's
I
shooting
was
pool
literally
with these eight
picturing
balls.
I was
Like, I mean,
picturing
come
like a
on.
snowball like they sell at the gas stations. Like, I'm picturing it's that much coke. I just have no idea.
And you sort of say to yourself, look, if you got involved with drugs, all right, look, it's unfortunate. Maybe it's disappointing. It's disheartening. And you sort of feel like let down about it. But when you feel like you owe everything about what your life is to this guy, how do you
Right.
turn on this guy,
It's
especially when you know the
invaluable.
state lies all the time? But
Mhm.
then the factor of kids comes in. And you're like, no, I can't, I don't care what the guy's done for me. If he really has put his kids in a messed up situation, if it's really that level, then you're like, how much, how am I supposed, or anyone's supposed to be like, yeah, that's okay. No, that, because then that's where it changes the entire equation. If he had no kids at all, like, imagine a situation where Nick Rekieta has no children at all. I would say anyone who's turning on him and looking to bash him, who's was once a friend of his, is 1,000% a complete and total a-hole. Like,
'Cause then
how
it's a
ungrateful,
question of just a person struggling with
self-destruction.
an addiction. Yeah.
Right, and their own personal self-destruction. It's the fact, the idea that this self-destruction, and we're assuming it's self-destruction, based on what we saw from that stream last week. So, and from other things, whether it could, the degeneracy that people have seen over the last year and a half or so. So, yeah, you can look at that as that self-immolation, but when it starts affecting kids, that's when it's like, no, I can't. I don't care. This is not about me or whatever you've done to influence millions of people's lives. I mean, this is your own kids. That's where it becomes inexcusable, and
Right.
that's why,
Then you're
right,
somebody who's like, "Oh, well, well, I have to consider all the money I've made and the views
right,
I've gotten before these poor, defenseless,
precisely,
innocent kids."
right, because
So,
then you're being a selfish dick. Like, it's like, oh, I'm grateful to you, and then your gratitude, at the very least, looks like you're valuing your own money over innocence, over genuine innocence. So that's why it's like, okay, if I really believe that these kids, so then the factor comes in, okay, so where do we draw the line when it comes to the kids? Like, obviously, if he was directly hurting them, everyone, that's clearly out of bounds, that everyone would be like, you're effed up in the head, go to prison for the rest of your life, you schmuck, right? Every one of us would be saying that. When it's like, okay, is he being neglectful? Are they being neglected? What does that mean when you say neglectful? I mean, look, I don't, here's where I'm like, I know this guy is driving all over the place. He never misses anything for his kids. He's homeschooling
mhm.
them. He's doing everything he can. If he felt like he's using on the side here and there, do I think that that's the best thing, a healthiest thing to do? No. But do I feel like that's something that, for that, because every once in a while he'll go out and take something illegal. Imagine not today. Don't think about what we know today. Imagine what we saw 6 months ago. So if you told me he's going out taking care of his kids and doing all this other stuff,
Yeah,
and
a functioning addict, right?
I
If such
mean,
a thing
and I
exists.
mean, I don't. I'm not saying to excuse it, but I'm saying is, so now, coming from the position I'm coming from, am I going to basically sit here saying, "F you, you're a schmuck," because because when you were watching that game, you took a hit and you were like not in the same freedom. It's like that feels like very judgmental. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, it's so that's why it's sort of like, and the problem is, we don't know. I don't think anyone's telling us the truth 100%. I don't think anyone in this story, I don't think for a second that Nick is telling me the truth 100%. I don't
Mhm.
think for a second Aaron's telling us the truth. I don't think the police are telling us the truth. So none of us know what the actual truth is. Instead, we're sitting here trying to basically dissect and say, is this part true? Is it not true? What do I actually believe? What's there evidence of? And then and you're sort of in this murky area where it's like, okay, if I believe this set of facts are true and you believe this set of facts, which are slightly different but somewhat overlapping, and now how are we going to look at each other that, wait, why are you not where I am as far as what my mindset, as far as the facts that I believe? Is it because you're nose guarding, or is it because you're grifting and you're trying to turn on your friends? And by turning on your friends, you're going to get a lot more clicks, a lot more views that way, because everyone's going to be like, yeah, go get him, go get him. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, so now this creates a different type of friction in people who are just covering this story as to whether people have wrongful motivations. So, and it just makes this like a crazy soup drama, a drama.
Right. Plus, there's people who, let's say, have always hated, been jealous of Nick, his success, his money, whatever. And anytime someone's in the news or like whatever being canceled, the psychology of that is like, ooh, we're all jumping in. It's blood sports. It's time to shit on Nick because I've always hated him. These people get excited and fired up and very vocal and
Right. Yeah.
stirring things
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. And you know, this is, and then if you're talking to people who are from that camp, and you basically say, well, you know, I don't really believe he's doing needles. It's like, oh, you're nose guarding. He's nose guarding. And I'm like, but they literally found 0 needles in his house. Like, why are you telling me there's track marks? They searched his entire house, couldn't find a single needle. You're nose guarding. You're sweeping, sweep for Nick. It's like,
Sweeping.
like what? Like, I'm just trying to assess what's truth, what's not, because everyone in this story, everyone who's telling me this story from their perspective is lying somewhat. And I'm just trying to figure out, okay, where's this embellishment from Aaron or this complete lie from Aaron? Where's this embellishment or lie from Nick? Where's this embellishment or lie from the police? I don't know. And it's so early at this stage that it's like, okay, I'd rather err on the side of trusting the guy who has been true to me, who I do know. And that's why would that not be my starting position, given where I started this entire conversation? That this is a guy who I do consider a friend, who has been nothing but completely generous to me, who seems completely based, and certainly seems like he's got some sort of addiction problem, certainly with alcohol. I mean, I think anyone would recognize that.
Some of my best friends are alcoholics.
And you know, from what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, at the very least, you know, some sort of issues with drugs as well. So it's like, and I don't even know if he knows whether he's telling me the truth sometimes now. Like, it's like he's sort of in this whole murky area, and we, the public, have no way of knowing what the truth is. And I think what you just said is so apt. Like, if you start in a certain camp, you're going to believe the story that you want to believe. And if you start in the I hate Nick camp, you're going to assume every negative thing said about him is 100% true. And if you start in the I love Nick camp, you're gonna start with an assumption that everything you see about him that's negative is false. And the reality of the world is definitely somewhere in between those two extremes. And the problem is it's so hard for us to figure out what it is, and people are so afraid of guessing wrong, especially when, you know, especially because of the kid factor. Because the kid factor makes it like, okay, if I'm guessing wrong,
Really delicate.
if I'm guessing wrong, I'm an asshole. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm a complete asshole. So it's like,
you risk losing a friend if you jump to a conclusion, and that's this balance of like, God, do I want to report on this? Do I risk losing a friendship or an acquaintance? It is tricky, and I'm sure there's people on both sides that are like, "Ooh, I'm not gonna really report on it or give my true feelings and thoughts on it because I don't wanna lose Aaron and April as a friend. I don't wanna lose Nick as a friend." So, there's shades of gray everywhere.
Right. I mean, and yeah, that whole element of the relationship also just sort of like is another completely different element outside of the legal activity, but just like as far as the crazy level of wrinkles that come into the story because of this relationship between these two couples, and which, you know, people may consider immoral or whatever, and be passing judgment based on that. And I'm not saying that I'm not here to pass along what's moral or what's immoral. You know, like, that's why it's easier for me to sort of focus on legal versus illegal. But
Right.
then But then again, that's where the kids change everything, because it's like, if you're effing up these kids because you're conducting some sort of weird relationship, like, how much judgment should be passed on that as well?
Right. They're whether they're being neglected consciously or unconsciously, it's like the fact still remains. If it's true, they're actually going to some preschool teacher, like complaining of being hungry and dirty, and it's like if their clothes aren't being changed in a number of days, well, that tells me they're not being bathed or washed, and it breaks my heart. So
Right. Although, I mean, I'll tell you right now, when you talk about being bathed or being washed, you're a newborn, you're a mother of a newborn, right? 6-year-olds bathe themselves. You know what I'm saying? It's like you say,
do
get in
they?
the
Really?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
You just throw
yeah,
them a sponge and some soap and be like,
yeah. You're like,
"See
go,
you in
go,
an hour."
yeah, yeah. By the time they're 4 or 5 years old, they're bathing themselves. So as far as their failure to hygiene, I mean, yeah,
Is a
if
five-year-old really gonna be like, "Sorry, mom, I gotta go shower, be right back"? Like, I
and this
think
is
most kids are gonna let themselves be like, they're not
yes,
gonna
they
rush
will.
to bathe themselves.
The,
They're gonna embrace
yeah,
filth.
yeah, yeah, they will. I mean, yeah, so I don't I mean, I've seen kids who basically insist on wearing the same
But it's like,
I've had
it's
kids who
your
are like, "I'm wearing
job
the same
as a
sweatshirt every
parent to
day."
make your kid to make sure they're clean, to make sure
Right,
they
no,
don't
I understand. No,
yeah.
I'm not trying to I'm not trying to excuse, filth. I'm simply saying, I know kids who basically are like, I've had kids who are like, "No, I'm wearing this sweatshirt. You wore it for the last 6 to 8. No, I'm wearing it again
And
today.
it's
It's my
like,
favorite
"No."
sweatshirt."
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, so I don't know. Look, everyone's gonna we're gonna end up seeing the body cam footage. We're gonna see that, and I'll tell you right now,
Gosh, the body cam footage, right, so that is the cop who what?
who did the
Broke
raid?
down his door?
The multiple cops. There's like, I think, 6 or 8 cops who were in there. So we're all gonna get a tour of the Rekieta home,
That's
and
not my fear. It's like, you know what? Now I will always be picking up for fear if someone breaks down my door, I want everything to look like camera ready.
mhm,
You
yeah.
never know, guys.
Is like your mother said, like, that's why you wear clean underwear, like, in case you get in an accident?
This is
Like,
the
so
2024 version of always make sure you have clean underwear. You always make sure your house is picked up. You never know when cops are gonna break
you're gonna
down
get,
your
like,
door.
yeah, you're gonna get the
For
ramming
real.